60 Skills. Today's lecture, we're going to be addressing an article I released recently called Reality is Not a Jailbreak. So I'm going to need to wear my glasses in order to do this so I can respond to the questions properly. So I apologize for the glare in advance. All right, the question is, for some people, living in a physical body is a jail of sorts. They simply wish to get out of here, and not everybody's excited about actively participating in various parts of society, not to mention their lack of interest in wanting to change the world. Should they be, though, and why? Great. The simple fact of the matter is, if you are alive in the world today, regardless of the conditions that you live under or have been born in, the fact of the matter is you wanted to be here. Incarnating is not an easy task. There is a very long waiting list to come to this reality in this place to live in a physical body. The simple fact of the matter is, if you're merely interested in spiritual development, you don't actually need a physical body to do that. And coming here has a lot of risk because you can make mistakes and you can get yourself hurt or do things to yourself that severely degrade that potential, and it's really easy to do. If you waste your life, it ends up costing you much more than just that wasted incarnation because of the karma involved. You got to understand that karma isn't credits and debits the way it gets explained in a lot of metaphysical systems. It's essentially physics. It is like attracts like. So if you spend a lifetime screwing around, doing drugs, committing crimes, hurting other people, ripping people off, when you die, that's the kind of place you're going to go to. You know, the balance of however you lived your life. And if you're a magician and you decide you want to use your esoteric abilities to engage in bad behavior, the punishment's even worse, because unlike someone who's merely misbehaving because they don't know any better, in this case, you do know better. And the universe really doesn't like that, because the resources that have to be put in place to train you as a magician are not small, esoterically, energetically, or interpersonally. And if you just throw that in the trash, the universe really doesn't like that. So, okay, let's put the seat. The question about living in a cave for decades. All right, here's the thing, is that human beings are built in the image of the Creator. This is important. The Creator, okay? As such, we are also divine beings who are designed to be creators ourselves. So if you spend your entire lifetime hiding from that and choosing not to actively be a creator in the physical world, well, you just wasted the golden ticket. It's not super complicated, which is why when you look at the conventional paths of development, you've got what? You've got the artist, okay? These are people who create things. Businessmen, actually, entrepreneurs, are the ultimate forms of artists in the phenomenal world that we have today. You got the warrior. Okay, this is a guy who goes out and confronts evil in society and contains it so the rest of society can function. He's creating a functional society. You've got the doctor. He heals people so they can be more productive and lead fulfilling lives. You've got the devotee. This is an individual that is purely an act of service to help other people, so again, they can lead more fulfilling lives. And finally, you have the trader, and I'll talk about him in another discussion, whose job it is to provide enough balance in society so that society actually functions. None of these five things are cases where human beings hide from reality. These are people who are aggressively engaging reality. And it's hard, and it's really uncomfortable. And it's prone to have lots of failure and misunderstanding and having people quit. And when those things happen, you end up paying for that. It's just, again, not complicated. Some people refer to the universe as a clock, a well-oiled machine. One of the biggest issues with metaphysics is that people pay too much to the meta and not enough to the physics. Almost everything that goes on in metaphysics can be explained through the physics angle. Karma, like attracts like. Action, reaction. You do one thing, another thing happens. The mechanisms by which these function are not well understood, mainly because technology just doesn't have the ability to measure a lot of things that make this stuff work. But I'm here to tell you, the technology that we're employing in Hermetics has not fundamentally changed much since the time of the Egyptians. And even if you're into grimoire magic, Dr. Stephen Skinner, and you can look him up, from Singapore, has clearly established that the entities largely utilized in grimoire magic have not changed since the time of the Greeks, the ancient Greeks. The fact of the matter is, the universe is constructed the way it is, and it just works the way it does. And by being here, you're actually volunteering to be here. Are you saying that getting married and having kids is a requirement for Hermeticist? It's not a requirement for Hermeticist, but here's the thing. If you're capable of doing the curriculum contained in Franz Barden's Initiation into Hermetics, or something like 60Skills that is modeled on this, you are an incredibly intelligent and driven individual. You have the ability to do anything you care to do in a modern society. You are literally the result of millions of years of evolution. You probably have an IQ somewhere north of 115, and this is in a worldwide population where median IQ in the US is about 90, not US, in the world is about 90. You're a genetic outlier. If you can do this work, you're something that is the pinnacle of development of humanity at this point in time. You owe it to humanity to pass that on. Some people will disagree with that. But the simple fact of the matter is, if you're capable of doing this kind of work, you owe it to your fellow man to make more of yourself. Again, not complicated. Here we go. Yeah. Gentleman goes on to talk about the truckers in Canada and what's gone on in Australia last year, in reference to the statement that it has never been easier. Human beings have never had an easier life or had less interference from the ruling classes. That's absolutely true. You see, 500 years ago, a situation like Canada, where the party in power was upset about something average people were doing, they just kill everybody. And this is something that still goes on in large portions of the world. And if you've never dealt with that, it's kind of hard to understand. You know, by virtue of the work that I spent, a couple decades doing, I called it the magical time machine or the horrible time machine, because you get to see firsthand how other societies deal with problems. Yeah, what's going on in Australia right now with all the COVID lockdowns is a real problem. But it's not the Soviet gulags either. And it most definitely won't wind up there unless something really weird happens. The world before yesterday was a truly horrible place. Horrible beyond measure, where human beings ate each other and sacrificed each other to strange spirits, and the main way of acquiring wealth involved killing another human being and taking whatever he'd made. It's really important to keep this in mind. And it's hard for most people in developed countries to understand because they haven't dealt with this. Depending upon what you do with a living, you may have dealt with this. And it's pretty terrifying and really sad and a huge waste of human life. But that's how human beings traditionally dealt with their problems. And we're in a day and age where if you're in a developed country, as of right now, that is certainly not the case. Not to say it can't go back to that, but if you're in Canada or Australia or New Zealand or the US or Western Europe or Japan or South Korea, you got real choices in how you conduct your life. if you choose not to actively engage those, there's going to be a price at the other side, on the other side, for not having done that. Not to say life is easy, and this gets into the issue of free will. Yeah, free will absolutely exists, without question. It allows us to engage in the enlightenment process or the path of enlightenment, just as it allows us to engage in thaumaturgy or miracle working. But it's a lot more limited than most people realize. Most people spend the vast majority of their lifespan on autopilot. Their hormones, what they eat, the society they're raised in, what they've been programmed to believe in school, all of these things tell them what to do. And overcoming that programming is really hard. Really hard. And most people fail at it. The meditative process gives you a way of changing that. And this is one of the things where karma and reincarnation kind of hit a nexus point. People typically set up several events in their life prior to incarnation. It's part of that whole learning process. That way you just don't show up here and have this random kind of experience with random ends. That said, you can in fact change most of those events. The amount of effort required is substantial. It's not easy. And most people fail at it. But that's where being here in a physical body is such an opportunity. So here's the thing. If you're living as a disincarnated spirit, entity, and intelligence, right? You don't have a physical body. No physical body equals no breath, which means no vital energy, no astral energy. You're purely a creature of mind. The problem with this is that doesn't give you any baseline energies to transmute to really push the enlightenment process. You're limited to the power of mind. And as a result of which, living in these non-physical places, your progress is very slow, esoterically speaking. That's one of the primary reasons why people choose to incarnate, even though it's really risky, really dangerous, really uncomfortable a lot of the time. Because here, you got a body, which means you have vital energy, which means you have breath, which means you have astral energy, all of which can be converted into these higher forms. So again, the bottom line is we incarnate to do things. And if you get here and decide you don't want to do that, it's coming at the expense of someone else not being able to do it. If you look at the universe as a clock that runs off energy, it's pretty easy to see how that's going to be costly over the long term. So what I tell most people is the meditative process, Hermetics in particular, is all about getting things done. Go out and live your life. Live an amazing life. Live a life that people wouldn't believe if you wrote it down on paper. Because if you can do this work, you are one of the few people who has the tools necessary to live a life like that. And as for famous Hermeticists, here's the thing. Most people who are really good at this don't advertise it. You only find out about it after they're gone. You know, Franz Barden was certainly one of these people. The simple fact of the matter is I've known top-level achievers in a variety of fields, from finance to real estate to IT work to security work to engineering to the arts, all who were big-time practitioners of Hermetics. There's zero incentive for those people to talk about that in public. Just none. Really only nutcases like me and my friends who choose to teach are the only people you're ever going to find openly talking about this stuff. And generally speaking, the ones that do are doing it because that's their path of service to be a teacher, or they feel like they owe it to other people so those people didn't have as rough a time of learning how to do this stuff as they did. I mean, the simple fact of the matter is, over a 30-year period of studying and practicing this stuff, there were half a dozen teachers I met who really had the goods and were willing to share them. Huge resources, years of my life were wasted chasing around after people who literally either had nothing or had no intention to teach. And many people will tell you stories when you get to know them about there being one of a handful of people their teacher ever taught at all. because most of the people who are good at this don't like to teach. They don't like the limelight. They don't like being out there in public. It's not in their interest. So hopefully I answered most of your questions. And if not, I'll see everybody at a Q&A later on. If you like today's speech, hit the subscribe button down below and give us a like. And if you're interested in learning more about 60 Skills, check out the links in the details section below the video. Have a great day and be well.